You guys thought round 8 was over? We've got some news for you guys. We pulled 2 matches, obviously, so we're not here just to sit here and look for it.
Sorry, it's getting late. Things are getting weird.
I was like, hey, you can make cell jokes now because I don't know if the news has gotten around, but we've got Terry Hong and Joshua Mecham for you guys. And
both X1.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys know this, but Terry has a tendency to favor a green snake that's not Rayquaza, which as a Hoenn fan, personally offends me, but I'm very excited.
I'm glad that your friendship, though, can survive this personal offense, apparently.
He thinks that. I do, Terry. And I think it's really fun to have a Zygarde still from if he is still running that. From what I've heard, for all intents and purposes, he is still technically running Zygarde, unless he changed it and I didn't know. But I am kind of excited to see it, especially because in a format here like, Xerneas is still running around just all willy-nilly with those Geomancies. It's an interesting mod to have.
Yeah, and his opponent, Josh Mecham, a little sneak preview. I hear that he also, it looks like his team is very kind of Xerneas-centric. So we saw that a lot in our first match from round 8, where if you can protect the Xerneas enough, it can just keep doing Xerneas things until it runs through your entire team. Looking at Josh's team sheet, you have to wonder if he has something similar in mind, because as these trainers are sort of getting ready to go, he does have the Incineroar and Amoonguss combination that we've seen Ashton Cox do so well with when it comes to Xerneas teams. So, and I think it's actually a really good thing to sort of rely on in this format. I mean, yes, you need to get the Geomancy up, but once it's up, it's very consistent. Once it's up, it does so much damage, and you force your opponent to really kind of pivot their entire strategy in order to stop that Pokemon.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is when you're going to run something like a Zygarde that is going to be weak to something like Xerneas, then you kind of really have to figure out how do you support that and how do you make sure that it's around, And I think we had seen sort of the inklings of the beginning of Sun where people were trying to run it, and now seeing that Moon Series has all the Z moves and whatnot, I think being able to see how it survives in that sort of format will be also kind of fun. Just to see how to navigate it, especially because, looking at Josh's team, you've also kind of got some that weird sort of attack on there as well, which I think we just seen in the first round 8 match.
Yeah, and let's just kind of get things started. That weird tech is going to be that Landorus Therian, which is a Pokemon, again, it was so common back in the day, and then Incineroar kind of showed up, and then it went away, at least for the Sun series, and now it's back. I really like how it's run in this format. I said this back in 2015, and when we had those Z Crystals for the first time, not 2016, when we had the Z Crystals for the first time with Landorus, that Ground DMZ is kind of the ground move that it's always wanted. It's very powerful and it's single target. It's so hard to get Earthquake set up in a way where you're not harming your own Pokemon on your team.
So we've got Josh's team here already locked in with the Yveltal, Amoonguss, Incineroar, Xerneas, Kartana, and Landorus Therian form, and Terry with that Solgaleo, Incineroar, Zygarde, Whimsicott, Tapu Fini, and Toxicroak.
Well, a Whimsicott's certainly something we haven't seen all day, I'll tell you that. I again, really curious to see it on this team. Whimsicott is usually more of a support Pokemon. It does get access to that Prankster ability, and it can move very fast and do a lot of different things. I've seen people use Whimsicott for Prankster Tailwind. I've seen people use Whimsicott for stuff like, the Z Crystal, actually. I think Normalium Z and a Terrain or something was popular a long time ago. I don't think we're going to see it now, but you never know. I mean, that's kind of the wild card Pokemon that Whimsicott is. It does have the downside of being very frail, so provided, again, that Terry sort of, identified its role on its team, and it can support him, and it can support that Zygarde, presumably.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be able to pilot it to success.
I'm really hoping we get to see sort of that pairing up here, because obviously seeing Tapu Fini and Zygarde on the same team, you kind of know that that's a quote-unquote sort of natural combination to put together at a certain point. But it'll be fun to see exactly how Terry's going to go against this matchup, as he is going to be sending out now that Tapu Fini and that Incineroar. So going to bring in that Misty Terrain and the Intimidate here, along with Fake Out Pressure, as we have Xerneas and Amoonguss from Josh's side of the field. So again, a sort of classic thing, but no chance for, sleep here because of that Misty Terrain. However, every opportunity to Rage Powder and try to make sure the Xerneas gets set up.
At least the Tapu Fini does have that Misty Terrain on the field, so if Terry wanted to, he could switch out that Incineroar, maybe not this turn, but a turn down the road, send in the Zygarde, and immediately go for that Swagger +2 attack boost on it. Whether or not that would be, a good play with staring down that Xerneas is yet to be seen. I think he probably knows the answer to that, and we don't. But I like when, especially in these kind of matches where your opponent doesn't have an opposing terrain, you kind of just set it up so you have it there, and worst comes to worst, it's there. You don't have to worry about navigating or switching things around or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think the tough part too is there's nothing Terry, I think, can really do to stop sort of a setup from Xerneas, right? So like you said, if he wants to bring in that Zygarde, he's gonna allow this kind of Xerneas to set up, but we do have that Rage Powder from that Amoonguss. So going to draw the attacks from Incineroar and from Tapu Fini here, as that Xerneas is free to go for that Geomancy here.
No fake out either from Terry, and I think that was the strong play. Maybe he's going straight for something like the Flare Blitz into that Amoonguss to deal big damage, or I don't know, like a knockoff or something. It really depends on what kind of Incineroar he decided to bring out onto the field. But I think it was pretty clear to say that that fake out wasn't going to be successful no matter what. So, and that's an interesting tech.
Yeah, so Tapu Fini's Light Screen going to make sure that that special defense is going to be a little bit stronger now for everybody here, which is going to help against that Xerneas now, as we have a U-turn actually from that Incineroar. So Terry going to choose this moment to look at the field, say, hey, you know what, we've got that Xerneas set up, so let's send in something that can kind of counter that, and it's actually going to be a Solgaleo here now. So hiding behind that Light Screen makes it even tougher to hit.
I really like that switch from him as well because, I think it was pretty obvious what Josh was going to go for in that situation. You see the Amoonguss, you see the Xerneas. I mean, there's only so many buttons you can click at the same time. So as the Solgaleo is the perfect adjustment here because it can go for a Psychic type attack and hit that Amoonguss super effectively, and then once the Amoonguss is off the field, it can then start targeting down that Xerneas. And with its typing and with that Light Screen, there's no way Dazzling Gleam is going to be a 2-hit knockout.
Yeah, so that Amoonguss going for the Rage Powder, of course, here, as that Dazzling Gleam doesn't do as much damage because of that Light Screen. And here now, Nature's Madness going to make sure that Amoonguss... Oh, nice! So that Amoonguss is still hanging around with half health, but that Trick Room setup from Leo is really going to turn things in Terry's favor. Sure, that Amoonguss is going to be fast now, but that Xerneas is going to be in a lot of trouble.
And that Amoonguss can't really do anything because it can't use its speed to its advantage and put things to sleep because of the Misty Terrain. It might have some kind of attacks that can do damage here, but there's only so much you can do when you know that you're going to be potentially taking a Nature's Madness and then whatever the Solgaleo has to deal in damage. So, again, really good play for Terry. I think he's using the fact that his team is, it's very unique to his advantage, and I love to see him capitalizing on that.
Another Rage Powder from Amoonguss because it can't really do anything, so no good attacking moves from this side of the field from it. We do get the Sunseal Strike now from that Solgaleo. Is going to go into that Amoonguss, obviously because of that Rage Powder, but I mean, Terry is just setting himself up so well here, is going to be able to pick up that knockout, gets the critical hit as well here onto that Amoonguss, going to make sure now he can target that Xerneas as we get that Nature's Madness, no misses, so this Xerneas is going to take damage and get to half of its HP.
And this is why Tapu Fini is such a good supportive Pokemon in a setup like this. Nature's Madness is always going to do 50%. You can give it the bulk that it needs to be able to take advantage of the Light Screen. And that Moonblast, honestly, I don't think it did much damage over the Dazzling Gleam. That Solgaleo is just in such a great spot. This Yveltal is going to have to go for something like a Sucker Punch, I think, if he wants to try and stop it from attacking that Xerneas, or if he has Protect, I don't know, Protect and then have that Yveltal go for like knockoff, or I don't even know, foul play maybe?
Yeah, and then it's kind of scary because like Yveltal, we've seen it be such a strong Pokemon, but here it's got too many options, I think, to try to attack it. And I think Terry is going to understand better. He's got this idea of, this is what I need to do against this team. Like, this sort of like XY variant where it's like, sure, Xerneas got set up, but I've got Trick Room, and your Yveltal's there, but sure, I've got other ways of dealing with that, like that Nature's Madness hitting as well.
And he still has the Intimidate in the back as well, I believe, from his Incineroar. So if this Yveltal really does turn out to be like a physical attacker, he can just go ahead and Intimidate it so it doesn't do as much damage to that Solgaleo, and it's free to attack.
And that's exactly what he's doing. He's going to bring in that Incineroar to do exactly that. Brit has the Intimidate now onto that Yveltal, most importantly. Obviously has that Fake Out potential for later on as well. We do have the Sucker Punch here, going to go into that Solgaleo, going to do super effective damage, and is not enough to pick up the knockout on there. And this, oh my gosh, we are going to be free now to go ahead and use that. That is a Steel type there.
Okay, so
that is going to be the Solarium Z move.
Oh my god!
Oh my god, this is exciting from that Solgaleo. This I love when Terry's on stream because he always pulls in some really fun stuff. So we do get to see Solgaleo's own Z move. It's going to be that Series Sunray Smash. So it is going to be the same animation as Lunala here.
All of their Z moves are just really hard to say. I just want to throw that out there. Enunciation is not really my strong point. But yeah, I mean, talk about big damage. This Solgaleo is just crashing into the Xerneas. There's no
By
way.
Xerneas.
There's no way.
Surviving that attack from that Sucker Punch is crazy because, I mean, you got that unnecessary critical hit on the Z move too, just to add insult to injury right now to Josh there, you know. I mean, that Intimidate was absolutely essential to that Solgaleo surviving.
It was absolutely huge. And, you know, Terry, you know, maybe it was a damage roll, maybe there was some, you know, luck involved with that factor, but I think he's pretty safe to say as long as he can keep dealing those big damage, you know, especially with the Kartana and Yveltal in the field, knowing what Pokemon he's brought, I think it's safe to say game one's going to go in his favor. So if I was Josh, you know, maybe try and stall him if you can, and then try and get some information about how much damage things do to things. I mean, the Kartana, if it has Protect, it can, or Detect, I should say, it can go for that, you know, maybe wait out the Trick Room, get that knockout on the Solgaleo if Terry gives it to him to get a Beast Boost, and then maybe he has a shot at it. But, you know, Terry's in the driver's seat. This is his game to win right now, and I think as long as he keeps applying the pressure that he's applying right now, he should be able to win.
He got on that Solgaleo and took us all through the Ultra Worm.
Seriously.
But we do get that Fake Out now into that Yveltal.
Oh, that's
the
big
superpower now into that Kartana is going to do super effective damage, but not quite enough to get it down to like a potential Focus Sash proxy. And we do get that sort of minus now into that attack and that that defense. Leaf Blade into that Incineroar, probably hoping for that Tapu Fini switch in. That Light Screen, though, I mean, helping so much against that Xerneas from earlier as well.
That's good information for Josh, though. He knows that Solgaleo has, Trick Room, Sunsteel Strike, and that superpower on it. That's going to be, I think, crucial for him to go into Game 2 because so far all the attacks he's revealed do not do super effective damage to that Amoonguss, and I think he can probably use that to his advantage a little bit better, provided that Terry just doesn't get on a roll like he has right now.
Yeah, I mean, Yveltal's going for that Protect here. Is going to try to stall out just a little bit longer because, I mean, we have seen Yveltal do, you know, what it can do the best, which is heal up with Oblivion Wing potentially. We have that Kartana showing that Detect, though, as Flare Blitz now from that Incineroar going to go into that Kartana. Obviously not going to hit it because of the fact that, you know, it is behind that Detect, and Sunsteel Strike not touching that Yveltal either, as Trick Room does expire. So, I mean, Josh now has that speed advantage, Light Screen is gone, and this Solgaleo is on its last hind legs, but there's not much to really do.
There's not much here. Like, I'm trying to think of a situation where the Kartana could get the Beast Boost and not get knocked out this turn, but really all Terry has to do is just double target into this Kartana, and regardless of which Pokemon it attacks, if it goes for the easy knockout from the Solgaleo, or if it goes for, you know, maybe something a little bit more effective than a Leaf Blade against the Incineroar, it's going to be, you know, really hard. So I like the switch here. I think that keeping the Solgaleo safe is a good call. I think that the Tapu Fini, you know, barring a Leaf Blade into that spot is not going to take a ton of damage, but
we get a double withdraw from Terry here as the Tapu Fini comes in, and Zygarde going to be shown as the final Pokemon here. I don't know what type of flexing Terry's trying to do here. We do get that special defense boost from that Misty. See, the Sacred Sword is going to go into what was that Incineroar. Obviously, you know, Zygarde taking that so nicely as that knockoff from Yveltal, going to reveal the item on Tapu Fini, being that berry for recovery.
I'm honestly, I'm not really sure what Terry's going for here. You know, I don't think he had to reveal that much information to his opponent. It makes me wonder if he's really confident going into Game 2, knowing that he has like a matchup advantage. You know, we saw the item on the Tapu Fini from that knockoff, so that's great information for Josh. You know, we might learn a little bit of something from the Zygarde now beyond the fact that it's holding that Misty Seed item. And Yeah, I'm really interested in to kind of figure out why he decided to do that.
I think he's trying to just go for that Intimidate cycle to just kind of guarantee himself those easy knockouts. Like, Josh can't reset any of those. That leaf is doing absolutely nothing here. That knockoff is also going to do basically nothing, having that Intimidate now here as well. So we've got the 1,000 Arrows, which is going to ground that Yveltal now, and it's going to knock out the Kartana, which is, a little bit more of a threat to most of Terry's team. But the Yveltal, even with the Sucker Punch, you've now got it intimidated. Actually, it's intimidated twice now because of that earlier one. So we also get the Power Construct here from that Zygarde. So just, the cherry on top for Terry here, just showing off all the things this team can do.
But that's going to give Josh that much more of an opportunity to sort of capitalize on this going into game 2. I mean, he's still playing this out. He hasn't clicked in the 4. I have to wonder if he's trying to think through his matchup and sort of using this extra time to, again, learn more information and figure out how exactly he can pilot his Xerneas better. His Yveltal is doing a great job of holding on, I think, and, dealing chip damage, but that's not enough. He needs to protect the Xerneas, and the way that Terry played that game, Josh didn't have that opportunity, and he needs to figure out where to find that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that Terry was setting up for that Solgaleo, obviously, and I think once now Josh has realized that Solgaleo is that Trick Room variant, and that's what Terry is kind of sort of banking on. The problem now is trying to stop that Trick Room.
I don't think he can.
And yeah, there's not much. I mean, we've got the Protect now from that Yveltal. Gonna try to stall this out just a little bit more. We do have the Fake Out now from Incineroar. Obviously, no attacks are gonna hit this turn. Terry kind of understood it. It's just to be like, what, let's go for the core. Let's do this.
Yeah. He's pretty safe right now to go for that. But again, going back to what you said about the Trick Room, looking at Josh's team, that Amoonguss is really the only Pokemon that could sort of help out in any situation under Trick Room. And as long as the Misty Terrain is on the field, that ability's gone. Yes, it can attack first, but, think of the last time you saw an Amoonguss, deal big damage onto a Pokemon. Spoiler alert.
Charisma!
I mean, maybe if that Zygarde gets set up enough, a Clear Smog would be beneficial, but, I was thinking more along the lines of, a Grass Knot or something.
Right.
That's usually Amoonguss's biggest damage move, and even then it's a 2-hit KO on most Pokemon. So it's not the best matchup for him. I think he's going to have to try and figure out how to one-shot the Solgaleo before it's able to, use Trick Room. And if Terry doesn't lead the Solgaleo and Josh can predict that switch, and then, I don't know, maybe use something like the Incineroar and the Landorus, or the Incineroar and the Yveltal, or just one of those two of those three Pokemon to double into that slot and knock it out before it Trick Rooms, that's his out.
Yeah, but the problem too now is if Terry understands that, he also has that Whimsicott. Whimsicott is so well known for having that Prankster Tailwind as well. And now it's a matter of Terry trying to figure out what is the mind game in terms of speed control.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that's the tough part here for Josh, because on paper, when you've got something like Xerneas to be able to set up, and you've got something like Yveltal to be able to deal damage like this, the problem is you're two people who are good at this game, who understand your matchups and what your opponent has to do.
Yeah,
and it's tough.
Yeah, no, I agree, it's tough. But I think in this situation, there's a lot more safety in using Trick Room than there is over Tailwind. I mean, all of Josh's Pokemon are fast. This is true. But Tailwind's only going to last for a couple of turns. With Trick Room, you do get more turns. And yes, you have to be more careful about how you set it up. You don't get that Prankster ability. You will take damage before it activates on the field. I don't see anything on Josh's team from what we saw in Game 1 that would get that 2-hit knockout, especially if Terry is very careful with how he plays those Intimidates as he did in Game 1.
I think Josh's biggest thing is he might have to just focus on one Pokemon on each of Terry's sides and just go for the strategy of knock out all defense first and then focus as much as you can on there, but try to mitigate the damage he'll have to take.
But also keep Xerneas around as well. Which,
that's a lot of things to juggle.
Yeah, that's a ton of things to juggle, and leading sort of the big damage Pokemon on your team, especially looking at what Terry sent out on the field, is going to make this an uphill battle.
Yeah, and now it's going to be tough because it's do you set up Geomancy knowing that there's a Trick Room possibility? Do you just go straight for damage into the Solgaleo? We do have that Xerneas Incineroar lead from Josh's side versus that Solgaleo Incineroar on Terry's side. So both of them having Fake Out. Terry having the slower Incineroar, as we can see here right now. So Josh being able to choose what he wants to Fake Out.
I think Josh is forced to switch out the Xerneas here. I think he's forced to switch in something that can help stop the Solgaleo from Trick Rooming next turn. And I think he's forced to hope that that Incineroar is actually faster than his opponent's Incineroar. and go for the fake out onto the Solgaleo so that it can't use Trick Room this turn.
And
I
like
don't see any other way this is playing out.
Yeah, so like you said, though, that Yveltal going to be switching in for that Xerneas. Xerneas not really in the best spot right now to do anything. So Yveltal just a better kind of Pokemon to bring here. As we got that fake out from that Incineroar going into that Solgaleo, going to stop Trick Room on this turn. We do have another fake out. Obviously not going to do anything because of the fact that Terry has a slower one right now.
So Terry was counting on that being a speed tie, I think, and that's something really important to note there. Just for future reference, I'm not sure if this is going to go to a game 3. I think Josh, again, if he's able to knock out the Solgaleo this turn, will certainly have the capability of bringing it that far. But if not, I don't know. It's such an uphill battle, and this is why I think Solgaleo sort of regained a little bit of popularity as of late. You're forced to answer it. And I'm interested to see why Terry made the switch here, because if I were him, I would think that Trick Room would be my #1 goal to get up on the field right now, especially after how devastating it was in Game 1.
So we do have another double switch out from Terry here. That Zygarde on top of it hitting the field in place of that Solgaleo and Incineroar. Going to activate that Misty Seed that Zygarde is carrying. Going to make sure that special defense of it is going to get boosted on this turn, as Knockoff is actually going to go into that spot of that Solgaleo. Does some pretty good damage, but that Misty Seed has already been consumed. And, Josh doubling down onto that Zygarde, which was that Solgaleo, because like you said, that Solgaleo is the biggest threat with that Trick Room. But Tapu Fini got in here for free.
It did. And now it's going to be free to go for something like a Light Screen this turn, which, I think will just kind of set Terry up for the same success he saw in Game 1. It's interesting to me that Incineroar went for U-turn instead of something like a Flare Blitz. If he was going for the knockout onto the Solgaleo, that probably would have been the preferred play. So Josh, I think, maybe expecting not to see the Trick Room quite yet, and instead giving himself a little bit more flexibility.
So no protects from the Zygarde, just in case here. And Josh going straight for that Geomancy, obviously going to get that turn 1 sort of boost. It gets all of those stats up. And, this is the part where you're trying to figure out how Zygarde exactly matches up against Xerneas, especially in something like this. And you've got that Yveltal still on the side there, going to be able to do the knockoff stuff that it usually does. Like as it goes for that knockoff into that top of, and you're going to knock off that berry, and won't be able to recover for later on. But now we've got that Light Screen again, which we've seen from before, helps a lot in terms of taking damage from Moonblast. And now we've got 1,000 Arrows once more, going to ground the Yveltal, but also because of the fact that Tapu Fini is here as a support Pokemon, you could protect the Zygarde and go for something like Icy Wind to try to make sure your Zygarde is faster later on.
Yeah, you could, and I think that. I don't know. Now that the Xerneas has Geomancy up, I feel like Terry's going to be forced to switch around a bit this turn. I don't think he wants to start going for those coils or otherwise sort of setting up his Zygarde until he has the speed advantage on his side. It's just like a really tall ask, and I think it's unnecessarily risky for him to put himself in that spot, personally. Josh does have the opportunity here to do some big damage with that Moonblast. It would have been nice to see that Yveltal kind of piggyback on that, but I think he's more concerned about the threat of that Zygarde setting up right now, even though he could theoretically knock it out with something like a Dazzling Gleam at this point in time.
So we actually have that Incineroar coming in for that Yveltal, going to get intimidated into that Zygarde most importantly, as actually Tapu Fini gets switched out for an Incineroar as well. It's going to intimidate both of Josh's Pokemon. Again, more important on that Incineroar, and Terry's own Incineroar is unintimidated right now. We are going to get a double switch at once on Terry, and that's always an interesting choice because you always take damage for both of these Pokemon sometimes. We are going to get that Solgaleo back in here, which behind a Light Screen can still take a Moonblast pretty well.
It can, and I think that was a good call on his part to protect that Zygarde for the future. Kind of we're back to turn 1. He can just fake out and Trick Room this turn. Otherwise, or maybe protect one turn because the Incineroar on the opposing side of the field does also have access to fake out, and we know it's faster. But it's going to come down to this Trick Room. I feel like he has to set it up now that this Xerneas has already gotten its speed boost as well.
That's so rough because Josh knows he can't let Trick Room get set up, but there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. You Flare Blitz into the Solgaleo otherwise, right?
We saw how much damage a Moonblast does to it. Theoretically, if for some bizarre reason Terry doesn't go for a fake out to stop one of the Pokemon on Josh's side of the field from attacking, he could do like a Moonblast and a Flare Blitz. maybe that would knock the Solgaleo, but that's a maybe.
Yeah, so Josh is going to go straight for that fake out into that Solgaleo, going to try to stop that Trick Room on this turn, as Moonblast is going to double down into that Solgaleo. Again, Josh really seeing this Pokemon as a threat, so obviously, you know, that Snarl there from Terry's Incineroar is going to make sure that that special attack from that Xerneas goes down to one stage, which against that light screen as well, this Solgaleo, as long as it can survive something like a Flare Blitz from this Incineroar, which is going to be tough.
It's intimidated. Like, I think it's at low enough health right now that with the combination of both a Moonblast and a Flare Blitz, that is going to be enough damage to knock it out. So Terry, I think, needs to sort of focus on what he wants to set up for the next thing. I'd say, you know, get that second up while you can, so that way the Zygarde doesn't have to worry about the Xerneas being especially attack boosted. It just has to worry about its speed. And if this is the Tapu Fini coming in here, I think that, you know, using this turn to try and get a Snarl up would be a super good play, but it looks like Josh was able to read that.
Yeah, so Josh is going for that Protect on the Xerneas, says the Flare Blitz is actually going to be from into that Tapu Fini spot. So Terry being like, you know, I'm not safe to set up Trick Room, so let's just go for that Flare, like, let's just go for that Tapu Fini in here. We are going to get that second Snarl, but Josh not wanting to get that second stage of a special attack drop is going to hit that Incineroar again, but it doesn't really matter on this Incineroar. Like, now Terry's correctly identifying he needs to stop that Xerneas because he needs to set up Solgaleo properly. Now the issue is Misty Terrain is also gone.
And if Josh has the Amoonguss in the back, I don't think we've seen his fourth Pokemon yet. That could be an opportunity for him to, you know, maybe let Terry set up the Trick Room. Try and not let that Tapu Fini switch out, or otherwise kind of bring that Misty Terrain back onto the field. That could be an out here, but it's really tough. I mean, this Xerneas also is free to attack this turn, and I don't know, maybe something like a Flare Blitz and a Moonblast into that Tapu Fini, even with the light screen, would be enough to knock it out.
And Tapu Fini going for that Nature's Madness, having held on at that Moonblast, that, you know, it back at like neutral attack, a special attack, does manage to get that Incineroar down to very low health, as Josh's own Incineroar is now going to go for that U-turn. It's going to allow him to pivot. I think we might actually see that last Pokemon, because if it is that Amoonguss, then all you really have to do is get rid of that Tapu Fini, and you're kind of free for a turn or two to go for the Rage Powder or Spore.
Yeah, or again, it could be that Yveltal. I mean, never mind. There's the Amoonguss. And yeah, you're right. I think now Amoonguss has to start going for Spores, and fortunately for Terry, he does have the opportunity to switch Tapu Fini out one last time here, but whatever he sends in is going to be taking some big damage.
Yeah, I mean, that Solgaleo can't come in comfortably. I mean, that Tapu Fini managed to hold on against a +1 Moonblast, and I think Terry, you know, we saw nothing can really come in safely here, unless that Tapu Fini has Protect where he can stall out something and maybe go for like a Flare Blitz into the Amoonguss and knock it out. It's going to be tougher now, I think, for Terry. Like, the gears have sort of shifted in Josh's favor.
Yeah, I think he should have been a little bit more greedy when it came to setting up that Trick Room earlier on in the game. He certainly had opportunities for it, and I think Josh has just done a really good job of capitalizing on the fact that Terry didn't go for the Trick Room. And I really like how he's set his Amoonguss up right now, and you know, depending on what Terry switches in here, if it's the Zygarde and Josh doesn't call it, then maybe something beneficial can happen, but it's going to be really close. I mean, when you have a Zygarde on the field against the Xerneas, especially with the light screen gone, that's just something you have to be afraid of.
Yeah, I mean, that Zygarde is the sacrificial, like, sort of snake here now, as we do have that Flare Blitz from that Incineroar, which, you know, Terry understanding, hey, he needs to get rid of the Amoonguss and is going to be able to, oh, no, he just barely misses that knockout, and we do have a Grass Knot there, so no sort of no Spore here at all, so a very interesting choice from Josh, and I think this is what Terry kind of needs to come back, especially because now he's got that Berry recovery, and that, I think if you're Josh, that is one of the worst ways that turn could have ended for you. Sure, you got rid of Zygarde, but I mean, you have Tapu Fini back now on the field. You've got Incineroar able to kind of take out a Pokemon here. Sure, you're going to you can Dazzling Gleam and do damage, but you're going to lose the Amoonguss, and you're going to have that Solgaleo come in, but it's rough.
You needed the Spore there. You needed the Spore to put that Incineroar asleep so it couldn't attack this turn. It's really unfortunate, especially since that Grass Knot did just the right amount of damage for that Incineroar to eat that Berry.
There's that forfeit there from Josh. That was such a fun match to watch, honestly. I think I always love seeing that type of stuff.
Yeah, that was, I think, a really, interesting. Oh, that was a Terry forfeit?
Was that a Terry forfeit?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I guess we totally misread that.
Yeah, we totally
wait.
misread. Yeah, we're just gonna wait to see.
No, that was definitely.
All right, so let's just talk about that game.
Did we miss who forfeited?
Let's just talk about this game while we try to figure out what's going on. If our production guy could, figure that out, that would be great. But anyways,
I'm pretty sure Josh forfeited. So Terry forfeited.
Looks like Terry forfeited, and Terry is going to be taking a quick break while we get ready for game 3. So, I don't for having to walk away from that match. I mean, that was such a difficult game for him. Thinking about yes, he was still put at an advantage in the sense that he got that berry off on his Incineroar and everything worked out there, but sometimes those
stuff like this.
are I know that was such a mentally taxing game. I mean, just think about it. It seemed like turn after turn, those trainers were like fighting for it,
I will say, I think Terry got greedy during game 2 because, like you said, he showed so much in game 1, and that bit him. It came back to haunt him in game 2, and I think Josh correctly sort of identifying, hey, I need to stop Trick Room, and I need to make sure that, like, all the stuff that Terry's trying to put out there, that I can't let him get that momentum. Like, every single time that Terry tries to get that start, Josh is there to stop him in that second game. And I think he did such a good job of that because no matter what Terry switches into a certain spot, it's taking damage from that Geomancy Xerneas. And I think now Terry needs to understand in game 3, he needs to stop that Xerneas from setting up.
I'll be honest with you. I do want to talk a little bit more about how this matchup's going to play out, but I think we should give the players a couple of minutes to get situated and back into things. Because we do have this broadcasting in the hall right now, but I can only empathize with the amount of pressure that's on these trainers right now. It's just. You know that your tournament life is on the line. Yes, there's a good chance that a couple of X2s are going to make cut, but, we don't really know what record these trainers are, sitting at, where they had their losses throughout the day, or should I say loss throughout the day. And, everything's going to come down to this last game. I think that both Josh and Terry have revealed all the tricks that, they were comfortable revealing so far. I think Josh was really playing all of his outs in that game. So it's going to come down to knowledge. It's going to come down to predictions. And, again, after such a long game, after such a long day, these trainers must be feeling really exhausted. But, going back into sort of the analysis of that game, too, I agree with your, assessment completely. I think that Terry should have been setting up Trick Room as soon as the game started, knowing that Josh was, potentially relying on that Xerneas as being the sole damage dealer on his side of the field. As much as I love Yveltal, it has great potential. It just doesn't really have great potential when all your opponent is doing is switching around bulky Pokemon on the off chance that something gets set up.
I think in game 2, though, Terry never really had that safe way to. The only turn he had that safe was the same turn that Xerneas protected, and I think it was hard to figure that out because then he was going to get Flare Blitz no matter what. So I don't think Solgaleo was ever in a spot to be able to I can click Trick Room here and it's fine. And because Josh never sort of gave him that option, he was consistently being like, okay, I have this Pokemon here, but I have this one to put the pressure just in case. And I think Terry's taking that. He took that full time to kind of just figure this out. And the hard part is, how do you stop someone who knows what your game plan is and who can set himself up to be able to deal just enough chip damage every turn to make it so that you're never safe?
You have to wonder, though, how much that light screen could potentially sort of save that Solgaleo and given it a little bit more wiggle room when it came to playing that game. I think if he wants to sort of fall back on what works, I think he should follow the same strategy he did in game 1. Again, get the light screen up and then focus on getting Trick Room on the field. And, I mean, if you're going to prioritize that, might as well send out those 2 Pokemon right now.
So we've got that Incineroar Xerneas now from Josh as his final lead here, and Terry leading with that top defending that Solgaleo. So neither one of them really messing around here. You want to get that Geomancy up, and you want to get that that Trick Room up. Full Metal Body, of course, keeping Solgaleo from being intimidated. So any attacks that it's going to have is going to be at full power.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing for Josh is that I think he's forced to fake out the Solgaleo here, which means Tapu Fini is going to be free to go for the light screen. If he decides to maybe try and be a little bit cheeky and maybe assume like a Protect or something on that Solgaleo, it's going to either Z-move or Trick Room. The choice is Terry's. I think that Like, I like how he just went for the attack. I think if Josh didn't fake out that slot, it would have just been bad.
All right, and so Incineroar going for that fake out in there, and Solgaleo getting doubled down by that Moonblast as well. But we have the Nature's Madness now from that Tapu Fini is going to make sure that this Incineroar is now at half health. I think if we've, obviously that Solgaleo is going to flinch this turn. Didn't go last, so was trying for that Trick Room setup. It's just tough because these guys are trying to get as much damage out there as fast as possible.
Yeah, and that's the adjustment I think that both these trainers need. I really like the getting that Incineroar down to half health at least makes it easier to remove it from the field later on. Maybe that's enough damage for something like the Superpower to knock it out. It's hard to say, but Josh, I think that not going for the Geomancy there was a really good idea on his part. I think that he needs that. I think that even though it's not like as much damage as it could be doing otherwise, if Light Screen goes up, I mean, how much damage can you be doing at that point, really?
So Xerneas is protecting itself as, oh my gosh, because Solgaleo avoids the attack here, which would have been so great because he's going for that Z move, hits behind that protect for that Xerneas. By the way, you guys, Swagger does have a 95% accuracy, which you all just figured, obviously. That self-Swagger miss has happened to so many people that I know, and seeing that happen here is so unfortunate because that would have been so helpful to Terry. He would have gotten so much more damage onto that Xerneas, even behind that protect.
That is such a rough miss for Terry.
Oh my goodness.
But, at least one, we get to watch this cool attack, and two, I think that trip's going to come into play later on. The Amoonguss on the field.
Oh, that would have been so much with that Swagger.
It's only going to be able to Rage Powder from here on out, and that Xerneas hasn't done the Geomancy boost yet, so it's not going to be as much of an offensive threat as it has been in the past. Like, really, Terry might be safe here to just go for another Swagger, hope that it doesn't miss, and then start using those Sunsteel Strikes to wear down either the Amoonguss if it Rage Powders or the Xerneas or whatever switches in for that Xerneas spot. It's a pretty good spot to be in, even though that Swagger did miss, and that would have been a really good play.
I'm now so curious to know what that Z move would have done behind that protect with the Swagger.
You have to know, he probably couched for that.
That's crazy.
That I wouldn't be surprised, especially since it did half damage to a protecting Xerneas, if the Swagger would have been enough to knock out through the protect.
All right, here's Amoonguss obviously going for Rage Powder because the Geomancy is kind of, it's a really good setup because you need that extra boost in attack to be able to do any sort of considerable damage to Terry's team here. We are going to have, possibly that Tapu Fini setting up, maybe Light Screen, maybe, trying for that Swagger again. It's crazy. Like, this is such a great match to watch.
Yeah, I really like the Light Screen here, though. Like, I think that's respecting the threat of the Geomancy. Maybe, I really like that.
I honestly think I think that was a free Trick Room, and I don't think Josh should have gone for that Rage Powder, honestly.
No. But what else would he have done, though? I mean,
that's a hard part, because either way, he might have lost that Xerneas, yeah.
He could have done some chip damage onto the Tapu Fini. It's not like Clear Smog is going to help him out in regards to that Solgaleo.
Well, we did see Grass Knot, though, so, could have tried to get some damage onto that Tapu Fini for later on.
But at the end of the day, though, yes, you set up the Geomancy on the Xerneas, but knowing that your opponent is so safe to go for a Trick Room, what is that going to give you moving on? I think that Terry has to start using that Swagger to boost its Solgaleo, otherwise it's going to take several turns to get through that Amoonguss, but with the Light Screen, there's no way that Xerneas is going to knock out that Solgaleo first.
I think we might actually be seeing that Zygarde possibly. Oh no, Incineroar, very nice. So we could also get another Swagger here as well, because that Incineroar Swaggered with Flare Blitz is going to be such a fun thing to watch. We do get the Intimidate, which isn't going to matter for either of these. Rage Powder once more from that one.
Redirect the Swagger as well.
So we do actually get Nature's Madness, though. So, Terry kind of really playing a good game here. Going to try to make sure that Incineroar is going to, that Solgaleo in the back is safe. We do have the Moonblast from that Xerneas going to go into that Incineroar coming in on that switch. But behind that Light Screen, this Incineroar is so comfortable right now.
It is, and Flare Blitz into that Amoonguss for the knockout seems like a pretty safe play, all things considered. Josh could even, if he wanted to, switch out that Amoonguss, send in his own Incineroar, get the Intimidate down, and then also heal his Amoonguss back up if it has that Regenerator ability.
Yeah.
So again, he does have options. He can play out this Trick Room, but you have to wonder with the Solgaleo in the back. He needs to be thinking, I think, about how to handle that moving forwards.
Yeah, Tapu Fini also still has that Nature's Madness that can hit into that Xerneas if it chooses to. But like you said, that Incineroar is going to be coming in for that Amoonguss. That Regenerator going to help heal it up just a little bit. We do get the Intimidate from Josh's Incineroar into Terry's own Incineroar, which is going to matter a little bit for those damage calculations. But we do get that Tapu Fini also being withdrawn. And I'm hoping this is where we see that Zygarde. Oh, nope, Solgaleo is back on that field. And it is going to be a Pokemon that, can still threaten a lot of damage because there's no more Rage Powder here. And we do have that Snarl, though, that Terry is showing us once more. That Xerneas protecting itself on this turn, so not going to get that special attack drop. But we still have that Light Screen up. Does manage to get, this Incineroar into half health. Misty Terrain does expire as well on this turn.
And now that Trick Room's on the field, the Terry's Incineroar should be faster than Josh's Incineroar. So if he wanted to, he could go for a Fake Out and then just attack something. I mean, he could attack the Incineroar for the Superpower knockout, or he could attack into that Xerneas if it doesn't go for a Protect. It's going to come down to what he thinks Josh is going to do. And I think that what happens this turn is really going to set sort of the momentum for the rest of this game. If Terry's able to remove the Xerneas from the field at this point, or if Josh lets Terry remove the Xerneas from the field at that point, then that's going to be trouble. But instead, it looks like Terry's just going straight offensive.
Oh, yeah, we've got that Snarl now once again from Terry's Incineroar, as the Fake Out from Josh is going to stop that Solgaleo. Is going to get the Xerneas to +1 only on that special attack, which is still going to matter a lot here, is because we still have that Light Screen up once again from that Tapu Fini. So obviously flinching here, but we've got that Moonblast now from that Xerneas is going to go into that Solgaleo. It is the biggest one on the field right now. Does almost nothing, just only gets it to half health. Josh is going to be kind of free to, go for... might potentially be able to go for that. I think that Solgaleo is going to be faster when Trick Room is up, but Terry's trying to take down that Xerneas.
He is, and remember, the Solgaleo does have the superpower, so we could see an interesting turn coming up where you would think that the Xerneas would protect here so that the Incineroar could then knock out that Solgaleo, but Josh could also just attack with both these Pokemon, and if the Incineroar doesn't knock out that Solgaleo, then maybe the Xerneas will.
I think we might be seeing our first knockouts now in this game, as Tapu Fini is going to be coming back onto the field in place of that Solgaleo. It's going to take attacks a lot better, that Flare Blitz, that Moonblast.
It is, but there's only 2 turns of Trick Room left. Terry's really hurting himself if he plays down sort of the turns of this game.
Xerneas going for that Protect on this turn, and we think we are going to actually get a U-turn now from Terry's own Incineroar, going to go into Josh's Incineroar. It's allowing Terry to pivot here, so we have that option now, bringing in back that Incineroar, bringing back that Solgaleo, potentially like Osmo. So Solgaleo is going to be that Pokemon hitting the field right now.
He had to end this turn with Solgaleo on the field, and I really like that U-turn maneuver. I think it gives Tapu Fini an opportunity here to also reset the Light Screen. I think this is the last turn of that. And that's going to mean he ends the Trick Room in as positive of a way as possible. But to throw a wrench into that plan, we know this Yveltal has Sucker Punch. I believe we've seen it. And I think it was like game 1 or 2. And it can target down that Solgaleo for damage, or it could just outspeed it. So I think Terry has to try and get the Light Screen back up. But then even then, that Yveltal is going to be able to, attack that Solgaleo. So now he has to send back in his Incineroar to try and get some Intimidates down. And I think that Trick Room couldn't have ended at a worse time. I wish he would have been at least a little bit more offensive on that turn. Maybe he could have done chip damage or something to give him a little bit more wiggle room now. Yeah,
this is the most tense tug of war game that I'm seeing right now. Is we've got that Solgaleo is actually really afraid of that Yveltal Sucker Punch. Is going to be switched in for that Zygarde now. Going to get that Misty Seed boost, because I think this is the first time we've seen it here. Yep. Going to get that Misty Seed boost. So no Sucker Punch potential here. If we get that Self Swagger on this turn, as Xerneas goes for that Moonblast, is going to go into the Tapu Fini spot. So that Zygarde comes in really nicely. The knockoff though goes into that Zygarde. We are going to get the Swagger here. Oh no! Another miss on that Swagger! This is not what Terry wants. That would have been a perfect turn for him.
Oh no. That is so
oh my gosh.
tough.
This is so rough. The only other time I've heard of so many Swagger misses is from Anaheim Regionals. This is a hard match to watch from back here. I wish you guys could hear the crowd out there.
But you have to wonder, though, even if he did get that Swagger onto that Zygarde, there's still the Xerneas on the field. The Xerneas could still target it. You have to wonder, what was it going to do in that situation? How would it have stopped the fact that there's going to be a +1 Moonglass going into a Dragon-type Pokemon? Even with the Misty Seed boost, I feel like he needed the Misty Seed and the Light Screen in order to be comfortable with the fact that he's at half of his health right now.
Yeah, and this Tapu Fini was in danger of being knocked out, so we are going to be getting that switch out here. We are going to get that Incineroar, so has that potential for the fake out again. It's probably going to get knocked out actually on this turn. Does get an Intimidate into the Yveltal, which might actually help it out later on. We know that Josh's Yveltal has that Sucker Punch, but Zygarde is going to be forced to protect. There's nothing it can really do.
Yeah. I think maybe his idea was, Swagger, get the attack boost, switch in Incineroar, get access to Fake Out, and then Fake Out 1,000 Arrows. I think that was the only way that he could sort of manipulate how that would work out in his favor. Unfortunately for him, the Swagger did miss, and even if it didn't miss, because he didn't have that Light Screen on the field, the Incineroar just got knocked out before it could have gone for something like Fake Out. So while it is very unfortunate that Swagger missed, I don't think that was as decisive as it seemed like a couple turns ago.
Yeah, and now that Tapu Fini is going to come back in here. Obviously, that Sokolay in the back won't be able to take a lot of attacks as well. So I think Terry now is in that part where he is not going to be able to really do anything. He's going to lose both of the Pokemon here, that Zygarde. Not able to hold on. Tapu Fini obviously going to get knocked out, and now only with that Solgaleo in the back, it's not going to be able to carry sort of that match.
That was such a rough loss. I think it came down to that Z move. Because, looking at Xerneas, it pretty much took damage from that Z move, and then that was the only damage it kind of took all game. If that Swagger had connected, it's possible that would have been a knockout. Xerneas would have been off the field, and then Terry could sort of maneuver his way around. I think he did a good job of trying to figure out his win condition from there, but I think Josh was just, lucky in the sense, I shouldn't say lucky, I think that he was very calm and collected and knew his win condition, knew that he had to stall out that Trick Room, and figured out a way to do it that sort of gave him the damage advantage he needed, so that when Trick Room was done, the Xerneas was there, the Yveltal was there, and honestly, there was just nothing Terry could have done.
Yeah, I still think that is a rough way to end your tournament run, though, having those two Swagger misses, because you played what you needed to do, and Josh targeted the quote unquote wrong Pokemon on those turns.
Yeah.
And that's always, I think that's always the hard part about Pokemon, is when you know that you played to your outs, but those the RNG there wasn't in your favor that turn. But God, that was such an exciting match though. 100%. That was so much fun to watch.
I know. It happens to everyone. I mean, as painful as it is to watch on stream, unfortunately, moves miss. Pokemon are not 100% accurate all the time, as much as I wish that they would be personally.
Oh, this game would be so different.
We got to look on the bright side here. Terry is only X and 2, and we do know that a couple of X and 2s are going to make cut. Depending on when he took that first loss, it's possible that his resistances will be high enough that he was able to get into cut. But unfortunately for him, it's down to luck again.
Yeah.
Which, after a match like that, I couldn't be feeling too confident in that. But either way, I think it's safe to say he's going to earn championship points from this event. He's going to be that much closer to his Worlds invite, and I think that he can definitely sort of recover from this loss. Yes, it's really painful and really unfortunate, but both those trainers played incredibly well. It honestly felt like it was a very high caliber match. So well played to both.
Yep, but don't go anywhere, guys, because Josh will be right here for that interview of that exciting 3-game round.
There were three games in there.
Yeah, so don't go anywhere, guys. We'll talk all about that stuff soon.